Core data is hard, but it shouldn't be. So I have created this playlist so you can learn 99% of core data. So I want you to hit that subscribe button because in this tutorial series we will start off by creating this to-do list app. So open up Xcode and let's dive in. So let's dive into core data. Now I know core data seems to be intimidating, but believe me, it is not once you get the hang of it. And with this tutorial series, I will demystify core data for you once and for all. Now, if you haven't noticed, there's a link down below in the description where you can find this playlist, because yes, this is going to be a series on core data, and also you will find a link where you can download the resources, because we are going to use some resources for UI. We are going to focus on core data, so yeah, we are going to use those resources to lay out our view controllers and some other stuff also. So make sure to check out the description. And if you do like the video, I encourage you to hit that like button, smash that like button, because it helps with the YouTube algorithm. So others, developers like you can also take a look at this awesome core data tutorial series. Now we are going to start off always by creating a brand new project and then importing the resources. Now, if you haven't already known about this, I do have a dev factory where I will mentor you. And if you have any questions about core data or any coding related iOS questions, go ahead and go to rebeloper.com/mentoring and you can apply there and talk with me on Zoom. Yeah, that will be awesome. So let's just jump right into it and open up a new Xcode project here. And I will choose create a new project. Now we will go through step by step because yeah, core data, it's kind of intimidating, as I told you. But once you get the hang of it, once you just know the details and how it is structured, you will love working with it. So that's why I'm going to call these projects Core Data Fun. So there we go. And this is number 1. So we will have more projects here. Now, for a starter, let's just choose by clicking here. So use core data, and we're not using CloudKit just yet. We are going to get there also, but make sure that language is Swift and user interface is storyboard. By the way, we are going to change the storyboards. We are going to do this all in code. But for now, let's just use the Apple provided core data template. So core data fun, and make sure you check the use core data. So let's click on next there and let's just drop it right here. I will create a Git repository on my Mac, so I will upload it onto GitHub. You will see the link in the description also in where you can find the GitHub repository. And yeah, we will be able to take a look at the finished project. How awesome is that? So there we go. First, let's take a look at some house cleaning. And what I will basically do is remove the main.storyboard. Let's go here and go to application scene manifest, scene configuration. I'm pretty sure that if you are a fan of this channel, you already saw this and you smashed that like button. So there we go. Let's delete the main.storyboard file also. And yeah, we removed all traces of the main.storyboard. And now what we want to do is go into the scene delegate and initialize the view controller. So how do we do that? In the scene, we'll connect to session with options. I will just name this variable, well, constant, because it's a let window scene. There we go. And then I will set this window scene to the window with the window scene. There we go, window scene. You will see this being done a lot of times in this tutorial series, but with some little twists. You will see. So now that we do have our window, we want to make this window key and visible. There we go, make key and visible. And finally, we want to add a root view controller to this window. And that root view controller will contain our view controller. But because I know what we are going to build out. We are going to use a UI navigation controller. So window dot root view controller equals UI navigation controller with our root view controller, and let it be. I will start off by creating the view controller in a separate constant. So let controller equals our view controller. There we go. And let's just add that in. Really, really nice. Now, if we just select one of our simulators, let's just select iPhone 11 and build and run. So while that builds, let me just talk you through what we are going to build out today. We are going to do a simple tasks list. So we are going to add a new task, a to-do list. We are going to add a new to-do, and we are going to list that out. That is plain and simple. But we are going to dive into a starter to core data. Make sure to check out the link in the description for the whole playlist. So let me just resize this. There we go. We have our UI navigation controller with the view controller in the background. Now, next up, now you don't have to follow this line by line, letter by letter. You just, if you don't really like my approach of building out the UI, just build it out yourself. The core principles are still there. So what I will do in this tutorial series, I will use Spark UI. If you haven't known about Spark UI, it's a framework that I built that makes UI, building out UI really, really fast. So that's what I am going to use. If you are going to use the resources, then you should definitely use Spark UI. So let's just implement here Spark UI. So go to your project, save packages, click on this plus button here, type in Spark UI, not Swift UI, but Spark UI. Make sure that you select this one and click on next here. You will be asked to set the version, so make sure that it is set to exact and 0.11.11. I know it's kind of funny that it's 11.11, but yeah, anyway, make sure that you select it as an exact value, because maybe I will change some stuff in the future. Well, most probably I will, and it might not be compatible with this tutorial. So 11.11 it is. So let's click on the next here, and yeah, this will be take some time. It will take some time because it will going to fetch all of the dependencies of Spark UI, and it will download it and add it to your project. So see you then. So there we go. Once you are going to be taken to this page, make sure that you click on finish there. And as you can see, all of the dependencies have been added. Really, really nice. Next up, we want to add our resources. So go ahead and download them. And what you want to do is select all of them and just simply drag and drop them into your project like so. Make sure copy items if needed is checked, create groups is selected, and add to targets is checked. Okay, let's click on finish there. And let me just remove this view controller. So let's delete that and move to trash. There we go. We have a brand new view controller. Now let's hit Command B to see if everything built. Yes, it has built. And yeah, go ahead and take a look at these three files. I will walk you through once we get to where we need them, basically. Before we do that, let's just start by taking a look at the template project that Xcode created for us. As you can see, there are some extra stuff here if you are choosing core data, and that is the data model. If you just go there, there is the data model, and we are going to talk about that in just a moment. Now, the interesting part here is in the app delegate. So let me just go there, and yeah, you have your basic functions that you already know, but hey, here we have a core data stack, and we have a persistent container and a save context function. Now, there's a lot of new jargon here to be learned, but I will make sure that I will explain everything in layman's terms, and then you can understand. So What is this persistent container? Well, first of all, you need to understand how core data works. Well, core data is basically like, okay, you already know this, like saving data to your device. And that's that. That's core data for. And of course, it's a little bit sophisticated, well, a lot more sophisticated, so we can have models there and we can fetch really, really fast and easily. But core data basically saves some data on your device. Now, if you have worked with saving data, let's say to a service or let's say Firebase, then you know that you are kind of interacting with that service on a first hand, like you just save and retrieve and that's it with one single code. Now, with core data, it's not that, it's not like so. You want to, like, you have a scratchpad between your data and the saved data, like the core data persistence. And that is the persistent container. Now, the persistent container has, well, basically it's where you store all of your data. And after that comes a context, a managed context. That's how they are calling it. It's like of a scratchpad. Now, when you want to save some data, just write it on that scratchpad, and then after you wrote everything that you want to save, delete, update, or create a new object there, and once that's done, you save the context. And all of that is written into core data. So it's kind of a two-step way to save our data. So that's why we have this persistent container, which is again created by the container name core data fun1. And if you just take a look at it, there we go, core data fun. That's the Xcode data model. And yeah, all of this is created by our Xcode template. And earlier, when we didn't have this load persistent stores, we needed to set up all kinds of stuff. But now, with just one call, we are going to set up that persistent stores. Okay, so yeah, it says you need to handle the errors, but after a while we get through the series, we are going to use a separate core data stack which we create on our own. So no worries, we are not going to handle the errors here. If you wanted to, you just go ahead and handle that here, but we are going to move the core data stack out of AppDelegate because I don't know why, but Apple puts it in there because maybe it's up to you to decide where it should live, but definitely not in the AppDelegate. So let's move forward and take a look at save context. So save context is when you just added all of your details on that scratch pad, and then you just save that context. That scratch pad is basically the context. So let's save context, and what it does is just grabs the persistent containers view context. That's how it is called, and it is checking if it has changes, because maybe you are calling it a lot of times and maybe you don't have any changes. Then you just want to skip, and then we do catch the save, because this could throw an error. So that's what we are going to do. We are going to save the context. Okay, so that's the default functions that Apple gives us when we are checked that use core data on the creation of the template. Now, what else do we have here by default? Let's go to our scene delegate, and if you just scroll a little bit down, you will see another new line here. So when the application, when the scene did enter background, we want to save the context, because there are a lot of reasons. Let's say there's a phone call coming in, or you just entered into background like swiping up, or you just terminated the app. Then you want to save the context. You want to save the current scratch pad, and this is how we do it. We grab the application delegate, so UI application.share the delegate as app-delegate, and we call the save context that I was talking about earlier. So it's kind of a long one, but don't disregard this. We are going to do this in another way, a much faster way and easier way. So now that you know how core data essentially works, we are going to take a look at the data model. So This is a GUI, GUI, I believe it's called GUI. And we are going to add in here one entity. So what is an entity? I told you there will be a lot of new jargon here. Well, think of entity as a model for your objects, be it a person, or in our case, it will be a task. So let's just do that. Click on this button, and you will see that a new entity has popped up here with attributes, relationships, and fetch properties. We are going to talk about in depth all about these in future videos. But for now, let's just select this entity. And if you just tap on there, or you just open up the inspector, you can just rename it here. So let's just name it task. Okay, so that's task, and that's just it. Now, this is kind of the name of the model. So let's move this out of the way, and let's add a simple attribute. And if you just tap on it, you will see that it's named attribute, and it has a little question mark here because the type is undefined. Now, let's just add a name for it, title. And if you just click on this undefined field, you will see some of the types that you can use in core data. Now, you will see that there aren't that many. So, for example, where is UI image? You want to say UI image. We will take care of that in the next episode. But for now, let's just choose string. We are going to talk in depth about all of them in the next video. So make sure that you check out the playlist link. Okay. And of course, hit that like button. So now that we have this task with the title attribute, we are ready to use that. And that's that. So you created your model. But wait a minute, where is it? Well, if you just take a look at the attributes, you will see, and let's just go here. Let's just select the entity first. And you will see, how is it this called? I believe it's, data model inspector. Okay, so select the data model inspector. You can see that under class, you have the name and the code gem, class definition one. What does this mean? Basically, what this means is Xcode is taking care of creating that class. Well, you know, the code that you used to write when you build out models. That is taken care of, Xcode is taking care of that. So it's automatically set to class definition, and it's inside your project. You don't even have to worry about this. Now, there will be some cases when you do want to add some data. For that, you should choose manual /none, or whenever we will talk about this. So if it's category / extension, there will be created only just one class. We will talk about that when we are actually going to generate our classes in a future episode. I believe it's in next or the further one. Okay, so that's that. Now you know that you actually do have a class. Okay, so now let's move forward and let's take a look at, well, first of all, let's build and run. Let's see how this looks like, because a lot of talk, a little bit of coding here, but we didn't even launch the app. So there we go. We have a to-do list as a title on the navigation bar, and we have here an add button. And if we click on that, tap on that, we have an alert here, and let's add a task like, okay, let's see, do yoga, and let's submit that. And as you can see, it's right over there. Let's add a new task, wash dishes, submit that, and there we go. Now, what it does with the colors, and I don't know if you have noticed, it's randomly choosing, and whenever we add a new task here, it's going to do another one. So let's add in here like walk. Submit that. You can see it changed the colors. Okay, so it's in the collection view cell. If you want to take a look at it, there we go. So it's kind of okay, but once we just go and relaunch the app, the list is gone. So how come? Well, core data to the rescue. So let's take a look at the view controller file, and let's just see how all of the current app works? Well, we have an array of to-dos, and when we show the alert and we get our text from the text wheel, we append that text to that to-dos, and we reload the collection view. Basically, that's it. We are storing all of our to-dos in this variable. But of course, when the app finishes, or we are just dismissing it, terminating it, or the to-dos variable, it's in memory. It is gone. So it will be gone once it's terminated. And yeah, that's what we are going to fix right now. Let me just scroll a little bit down so you can take a look at the code. There we go. Here we have our data source. It's plain and simple. Okay, if you're wondering how this flow layout and collection view is from Spark UI, you just create the plain on UI collection view flow layout and the UI collection view if you don't want to use this. So now let's just move on to core data. Now it's time to present you how the objects are represented in core data, and that is an NS managed object. So we are going to save NS managed objects. So for that, let's just comment this out for now, and we will have a lot of errors, but don't worry, we will fix that. And let's create a list of tasks. Tasks, there we go. And this will be an array of NS managed. But of course, we need to import core data so we can have that NS managed object pop up. So core data, there we go. So NS managed object, there we go. So we have a list of NS managed object, and let's make it an empty list. Okay, so now we will have all of those alerts here, but for now, let's just take them one at a time. Okay, so here we have on the to-dos. We don't have the to-dos where to append that text. So we are going to comment all of this out. And what do we actually want to do here? Well, we want to save our managed objects. We want to save a task. So for that, I have created here, or let's just create it right now, because I can see that it's not over here. So we want to have a save task function. So we are going to do that in an extension. So extension view controller, and yeah, maybe you could add in here a mark for core data, but yeah, it's a core data tutorial. So let's just create a save task function here, and let's have it with title, and let that be a string. And I want to have a completion handler because yeah, this takes a little bit of time and it will show or it can throw an error. So let's just handle that. So let's create the completion, and that will be an escaping completion, and we are going to create here a result. There we go. And the result, well, either we saved the task or not, or we had an error. So let's add in here a Boolean value and an error for our result type. Okay, so now let's just finish off by adding those brackets there. So first of all, we want to grab the managed context. And if you recall that, it's in the app delegate. So let's just grab it. And I will guardlet unwrap that. So app delegate. Because, yeah, app delegate might not exist. It's an optional. So UI application dot shared. And delegate, there we go. As you can see, that is an optional one. So we want to set this as app delegate. And if not, we want to return, but we want to return with, well, we want to complete with some explanation of what happened. And I do have an error created just for that. Here we have our core data error. It's a no app delegate NS error. So we can use that later on. So we are going to complete with a failure of core data error. Again, this is my own error that I have created. So yeah, and we are going to show an alert for that in just a moment. So now that we do have an app delegate, we want to grab the managed context, because yeah, that's the scratch pad where we write our data on before we save it, because after that we are going to save it. So let's grab our managed context. There we go. Let managed context equals our app delegate. So we grab our app delegate and we grab our persistent container, you know, the other function that we have created there. And, well, it was created. And we grab our view context. Okay, and that is our managed context, which we are going to save it. Now we want to create an entity. So an entity is kind of, okay, a link to your data with that managed context. I will type it out, and you will see that once we do that. So let entity, and that entity, well, we can create entities a lot of ways, but for now, let's just create it the rough way with ns entity description, ns entity description. There we go, or entity. And the name will be a task. If you recall now, whenever I type in here stringly, like I just type in the name as a string, make sure that you type the correct string in. So currently it's the task, it's the name of the model that we have created. Well, it's not the model, it's the entity. Okay, and now we want to pass in the context, and that is, of course, the managed context. And now we want to set the entity's value, we want to set the title of our entity. So task, let's just name this, well, it could be entity, but I will name this task because it's easier for you to understand. Well, you could just start off with entity because you are creating an entity, but let's just rename it to task. So task, and let's go ahead and set our value, set value for key. You want to choose this one, and the value is, of course, the title that we are adding in, and the key is title. Again, make sure that you type that in correctly. And finally, we want to save it. So now that we have written to the scratch pad that I was talking about, and that is the context, we want to save it. And if we type in manage context and save, save, as you can see, it froze. So yeah, you will see that function. So it froze. So we want to set it in a do catch statement. So do catch. And we are going to try by typing in managed context dot save. There we go. And oh, sorry, I just added into the pattern. We should use this one, and managed context dot save. Okay. And we are not going to use any pattern, because if we are just deleting this, it will catch a simple error. And we are going to complete with failure of that error. And there we go, it's auto-completing. That's the error that we are catching. And while we are completing, let's just complete here with a success, because yeah, everything worked. If we get into this part of the code, we successfully saved our task. And that is save task. So let's just use that up here. If you recall, we just started right over here. We want to save our task, and that is pretty simple. We are going to call save task. There we go, it's auto-completing. How nice of Xcode. And the title, by the way, because we here in the add bottom item, this is lazily loaded variable, we want to call self here. So we want to add a text, so that is the title actually. And as you can see, we have a result here, and that is Boolean or an error. And type in result here, and let's just switch through the result. switch result, and let's just wait for Xcode to autocomplete here. So let's fix that. And this is pretty simple. If we finish, so finished, if finished, then everything is okay. Otherwise, well, we are not returning false anyway, so let's just show an alert something went wrong. And with the help of Spark UI, it's just that simple, like show something went wrong. You just create your own UI alerts if you are not using Spark UI. So that's that. If we do have a failure, we want to show the alert to the user, and that is again really simple with Spark UI. Show error, and the message will be error.localized description. There we go. And otherwise, let's just print out successfully saved, because we don't want to show an alert each time we successfully saved. So successfully saved, and we want to reload the collection view, but we don't really want to reload the collection view because we actually want to do something else. We want to fetch the data. So for that, we are going to call here self.fetch. And you can see we already have a fetch function here. And let's just scroll all the way down to the fetch function. And it is a file parser function, which isn't implemented just yet, but we will do that in just a second. But before we do that, let's just build and run and see if anything just worked. Well, of course, let's just do some stuff here. So number of items in section. If you know UI collection views, you know this. And we want to change this to the number of tasks. So what we want to do here is set tasks.count. And then we want to take a look at the collection view cell for item at index path. So as you can see, we have here a setup function. Basically, what we are adding here is the item, the to-do item. Now, instead of a string, now we want to add, well, we do want to add a string. So let's just grab it from our task. So first of all, let's grab our task from the tasks list, from the index path dot row, there we go, and then we want to grab the task title. So this is really rough. I wouldn't recommend doing this on the production app, but yeah, it does the job. We will do other type of setup of cells in the next lessons. So where were we? Task title, there we go. Let's grab our task and value for the key, and that is title, if you recall, title, there we go. Make sure that we don't have any typos, and we want to cast it as a string, and if that doesn't exist, then let's just have a string of not available, there we go. And finally we want to change, let me just maybe comment this out so you can see that what we changed. And let's just add in here our task title. Now let's hit Command B and see if everything worked okay. Build has succeeded. That is really nice. So let's build and run and save a new task on core data. So let's add in here, and I will do this like feed cat. Okay, let's submit that. And basically nothing happened. You can't say anything because we didn't fetch from core data, but that is what we are going to do. So now, and it's crashing because, we don't know. You could just take a look at it, but I do know that it's not functional. So let's just finish off and get rid of that crash. What we want to do is fetch. Okay, and so when we successfully save, let's just capitalize that, we are calling on fetch. And for that, we first of all, let's create a new, like the one that we just created for a save task. We want to complete. So let's create a new function here, and I will call it fetch tasks with a completion handler. So func fetch tasks with the completion and again it will be an escaping completion, and let's just create our completion here, and we are going to complete with a result. Let me just add in here these two parentheses so we can get this. Okay, so I believe I missed, yeah, punctuation. There we go. So result, and we are going to return an array of NS managed objects. NS managed object, and otherwise an error. So all of the tasks. Of course, the tasks are managed objects. So first of all, again, we want to grab the app delegate. So I'm going to copy that out and paste it in there. And next, we want to grab the managed context. So again, let me just paste that in there. How nice that we can copy and paste, but make sure that you paste what we do want to paste. So next, I want to present you a really powerful tool of core data, and that is the fetch request. So let's create a fetch request, our first fetch request. So we are going to fetch all that data from core data, and that is going to be an NS fetch request, and it will be of type of NS managed object, of course, NS managed object, and we are going to do with an entity name of the task. So we are basically asking for all the task objects from core data. And yeah, we are just going to fetch that fetch request. It's kind of fetch the fetch request, fetch the request, but it's called the fetch request. Okay, so that might throw an error, so let's do this on a do try statement, and yeah, managed context as usual, and start typing in fetch, and as you can see it throws an error, so fetch request goes there, and again I'm going to eliminate the pattern, and I'm just going to complete with a failure of error. There we go, let's choose that one. Now, as you can see, we are not using result of call is unused, so let's add in here result equals the try, and then we want to complete. So if you take a look at this, you will see that indeed this is actually, let me just select that again. So result, it is an array of NS managed objects. So that is what we are trying to complete here as a success. So completion dot success, and as you can see, it's asking for an array of managed objects, NS managed object, and there we go. So that is the fetch task, and we want to add that fetch task into that fetch file private function. So let's just go all the way up to that function and fetch tasks. Now, why did I do this? And that is because I want to separate the UI stuff, which is right now, like showing alert, from the logic stuff. Okay, we could have done this in one function, but we are not doing it. So result and switch result. Again, we are going to go through it. Let Xcode handle the switch statement there. So let's fix that. Okay, and now we have managed objects. Okay, and of course here we have error, and yeah, alert, the same. Show error dot localize description, and now we want to set. Basically, now we have our managed objects. So if you just scroll all the way up, and you can see the tasks is a list of NS managed objects. Okay, and let's just go down here. So self.tasks equals the managed objects. Okay, and finally, we want to reload the collection view. So reload data. That is basically it. But you would be wrong. Now, if you just run this app, you would get a fetch or you would not. It's kind of, you don't know what's wrong. So what's wrong here is that this is going on the background thread, and the collection view needs to be reloaded on the main thread. So what we could do is call dispatch queue here dot main dot async and call reload the data there. So let's just cut it out and paste it in there. Or you could just call from Spark UI self.collection view reload data on main thread. So basically what it does, let's just jump to definition there. It's the same thing, dispatch queue.main on async. But it's up to you. I will choose the one with Spark UI. So now you know. So let's just build and run and see how all of this comes together. There we go. And let's just add a new data here. And yeah, by the way, let's just close this because I just forgot to call the fetch when we are actually loading the view. So let's just copy this out, and with SView controller, I'm not going to go into the details, but yeah, we should call fetch here, but it did. Let's just see, let's just debug this because maybe I just forgot something. Yeah, that's the way how you just debug. So do yoga, let's just submit that, and we have the crash. And we didn't get rid of the crash, so there's just one thing. Okay, so after a little bit of debugging, you can see that it says this class is not key value coding compliant for the key title. So this is where the issue is. So this is an entity basically, entity, and we want to create a task from that entity. So yeah, make sure that you do that. Task equals, and this will be an NS managed object. So yeah, we want to create managed objects. NS managed object, and let's just use the one with the entity. There we go, entity, and insert info. As you can see, it's an NS managed object context. There we go, managed context. And by the way, this is an optional, so let's just bang that out. It's safe. Well, it's not safe to do this. Let's just get that optional out of the way. So it's not safe to do this, but you should bang this out anyway because it should fail on your development code if this happens. So let's just build and run again and see how this looks like. Yeah, live debugging. So let's add, let's say, feed cat. There we go. Let's submit that. Yeah, and we have also fetched it. And as you can see, it says successfully saved. Let's just add some more, like do yoga. Let's also submit that. Really nice. So now here comes the test. Let's just close this app and build and run again. There we go, feed cat and do yoga. How exciting, core data, yes! So now that you know how basically core data works, how to save and fetch basic data from core data, in the next video we are going to talk a little bit more about this data model GUI, and more specifically, among others, because we are going to improve our way of adding core data to our project, we are going to talk about all of these types. We are going to, well, most importantly, I believe that you are expecting to see UI image. How do I save UI images? Well, you are going to learn that in the next episode, so make sure you smash the like button and take a look at the link in the description for the resources and for the playlist, so you can see everything in one go. Go ahead and binge watch it. So now you know the basics of core data. Now, if you want to top it up a notch, we are going to talk about attributes in Coordinator in my next video. So hit that notification bell, and while you wait for it, make sure to check out these two videos as well too. I talk a lot about Swift UIKit in general, and as usual, I will see you in the next one.